What's up, everybody? I am back. With May being Mental Health Month, I needed to take some time off from creating content to really focus on getting through one of the more challenging months of my life. And I promise that is not an exaggeration in the slightest. My June started off with a much needed week at the beach, and I wanted to get started on making content while I was there, but the beach house had really shitty internet, so I had to delay it just one more week into June. But it seems like in my time off, I only missed out on making a bunch of tier maker lists anyways, like everybody else. If you're interested in hearing about what was going on in my life, I really do appreciate your concern, and I actually could probably use support on Twitter, but I'll save all of that for the end of the video because most people are probably just here to see who the next big star on their team will be. So I'm breaking out of my post-draft funk with one of my favorite things to talk about during the NFL offseason, and that's Breakout Players 2019 edition.
Oh yeah!
I say this every year, but once again, for the record, here's my definition of a breakout player. Breakout player in the NFL Retweet Dictionary is a player who has not yet produced at the level he is fully capable of or expected due to draft status or talent level. Rookies are not considered breakout players as they don't have an NFL performance to break out in comparison to. Instant impact does not equal breakout player in my opinion. For example, the Baker Mayfields, the Derwin Jameses, and the Saquon Barkleys of the world. Those guys didn't have breakout seasons, they just show that they were ballers from day one. It'd be easy to say Bears rookie running back David Montgomery will have a breakout rookie season. He was drafted to be the RB1 for the Bears, so if he doesn't have, say, 700 plus rushing yards and like 200 receiving yards, it will be a disappointing year, but that will also set him up as a potential breakout player for the year 2020. These players usually consist of second or third year guys who were drafted within the top 3 to 4 rounds and have yet to reach their full potential due to the lack of opportunity, injury, or they just haven't developed yet. I tend to stay away from guys coming off of a torn ACL, Achilles, etc. in their first season back. Even though guys coming off injuries with an intense rehab can physically play the following year, they're typically not back to 100% until the second season post-injury. Adrian Peterson is the exception to this rule, but there are also cases where they can rebound in the following year in a similar way. I'm just saying, usually a guy's not going to give his best season or his best performance the year following an injury. I tried to avoid some of the obvious picks, but I gotta be honest, some of y'all's football teams are straight trash and I just couldn't find anybody else. I will acknowledge an obvious breakout choice if I pass on him for a lesser known guy, but even the best teams really only have 3 to 4 guys that should even be considered at this point. I might do a 2019 fantasy football version of breakout players once we get to hear about some of the guys that are really standing out in OTAs and training camp, but I want to cover a lot of stuff before the year starts, so consider this as an initial fantasy football preview too. I've actually got a really cool fantasy football league thing in the works for this year too, but that's another topic for the end of this video. Stay tuned if you're interested in joining. Alright guys, I am sorry for the long intro. I know some people hate these, but it's been a while and you guys know I always like to set the table before inviting you guys to eat, but let's dig into this. With the Arizona Cardinals, I've got wide receiver Christian Kirk. Cliff Kingsbury's offense is a perfect fit for this guy. He's already got a head start on all the other rookie wide receivers that they drafted this year. He's got such a diverse skill set. He's really going to be an offensive chess piece that could be moved all over the field in this offense. And to top it all off, he actually played with Kyler Murray at Texas A&M as freshman, so they're going to have that instant connection going into the season. For the Atlanta Falcons, I struggled with this one because they've got a pretty veteran-laden roster, so there's not a lot of room for impact players to sort of just pop up all of a sudden. But I settled on tight end Austin Hooper. Cornerback Isaiah Oliver was also an option here, but I settled with Hooper because Dirk Cutter tight ends were huge in the Bucs offense. In his previous tenure with the Falcons, Tony Gonzalez was a baller. Calvin Ridley is the easy option here for this team, but 821 yards, 10 touchdowns, it feels about right in year 2. I can't really see him improving too much upon that. I could see him maybe hitting the 1,000-yard mark, but Julio and Calvin really should open things up in the middle for Austin Hooper. Hooper had a really bad 2018. He didn't have a single game over 80 yards, so I kind of want to say that it can't get worse, but to not have a game over 80 yards and still end up with 660 overall on the season is pretty good. I think that with the extra attention that Calvin Ridley's going to get, it's really going to open things up for Hooper, and I think that this Falcons offense with Dirk Cutter should see a little bit of a revival, and with the defense picking up their side of the slack, I think that this team overall as a whole is going to see a huge improvement, and I think that Hooper might be the beneficiary of that improvement. For the Baltimore Ravens, I had to go with the easy pick here, and that's quarterback Lamar Jackson. The front office really reinforced their faith in Lamar Jackson this offseason, and this offensive scheme with the moves that they've made by trading Joe Flacco, the running backs that they re-signed, and all the other stuff, even letting them go of the wide receivers and not really making a huge effort to upgrade the position there. I mean, this passing attack, it really can't get worse, right? I mean, that was about as low as you're going to get in the modern day NFL. NFL. The rushing attack could be even more dynamic though this year with the new additions at running back, and then Hollywood Brown is the perfect kind of wide receiver to just take the top off of a defense. It's going to make sure that the defense stays honest and still defends that deep ball to Hollywood Brown, and they're going to have to respect his run after catch also. The question will be if Lamar Jackson can improve enough accuracy wise to get the ball to him. So that will be interesting to see, but I don't remember thinking that he was this inaccurate of a passer when he was at Louisville, so I think that we saw some sort of rookie jitters. I think that we'll see a much improved quarterback and that he will still be able to maintain running the ball as well as he did, maybe cut down on the fumbles a little bit, but we'll see a big uptick in his completion percentage in his sophomore year. With the Buffalo Bills, I went with the easy pick again. I almost went with linebacker Tremaine Edmonds because I really liked him coming out of the draft, and I think that his ceiling is almost unlimited. But I went with Josh Allen here because I wasn't that high on him coming into the draft. I actually thought that his accuracy was going to be a severe issue, and even though he had an even worse completion percentage than Lamar Jackson, I'm actually really impressed with what I saw from him on the field. The difference in the Bills offense with and without him was just so drastic that you really can't even begin to explain how much of an impact he really had on this offense when he was in it compared to when they had to play a guy like Nathan Peterman. Like I said, the completion percentage at 52.8%, it should increase with the supporting cast improvements at wide receiver, tight end, and running back. Either Devin Singletary will be what Shady was supposed to be, or LaShawn McCoy bounces back. One of the two is really going to help him a lot. The physical tools here just translated more than I even thought for Josh Allen. We're talking about Cam Newton levels of athleticism here. It really will be interesting to see how he progresses in his sophomore season and if he can stay healthy running around the way that he did. Speaking of Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers, I was debating between one of their wide receivers as Breakout Player of the Year, and I settled on wide receiver Curtis Samuel over last year's first round pick DJ Moore, mostly because of the big plays that I think that Curtis Samuel will make, whereas I think that DJ Moore is going to be more of an underneath receiver, run after catch kind of guy, and Curtis Samuel just has an extra year of development in this offense and rapport with Cam Newton. I definitely considered Dante Jackson, the cornerback, here also, especially with Cam Newton and his concerns with that shoulder, putting this offense in potentially a tough spot. They may have to rely on their defense a lot more than anticipated, but both of these young wide receivers have really big play potential. Devin Funchess is now gone to Indianapolis, but that Cam Newton shoulder is key here. One of these two wide receivers should be their Breakout Player of the Year just due to the fact that they're going to be getting a ton more reps with Devin Funchess gone. Is Cam Newton going to end up being the 16-game starter there is the question. Moving on to the Chicago Bears, I went ahead and selected edge rusher Leonard Floyd over wide receiver Anthony Miller. Leonard Floyd was the 9th overall pick in 2016, and he finally played all 16 games for the first time in 2018 and still only amounted to 4 sacks. This guy is an athletic freak with a ton of expectations, which is rightfully so, with Khalil Mack dominating on the other side of the ball, and he's got Aaron Lynch, who the Bears brought back for another year, and he's got to hold him off because he will eat into his playing time, which will prevent him from being able to get the maximum production from the playing time that he's going to get. My concern is that this defense takes a step back while the offense takes a step forward as they move on from defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, and then the offense has got another year to gel under head coach Matt Nagy. That's why Anthony Miller was the other option here in my mind as the Bears Breakout Player of 2019, but I'm going to go with Leonard Floyd just based on the fact that he is going to be in a contract year, and from athletic freaks in contract years, we typically see big things happen. The Cincinnati Bengals were a tough one. I had 3 players that I was debating between here. That was wide receivers John Ross, Tyler Boyd, and defensive end Sam Hubbard, who actually had a pretty underrated rookie season with 6 sacks in 2018. And I guess you can kind of say that Tyler Boyd broke out last year. He had 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. So I went ahead and went with John Ross here. The trade rumors, they could have been motivation for this 3rd-year wide receiver. He is the fastest man in the NFL after all, and was actually a smooth route runner coming into the league. He's just got to stay healthy and allow new head coach Zach Taylor to move him around and use that speed to their advantage. The Bengals are a really tough read this year. They could win despite Andy Dalton. They could end up having an effective running attack and relying on their defense. It all depends on, was Marvin Lewis really holding this team together and then holding them back in the playoffs, or were they winning despite him? Is Zach Taylor going to come in and really give this team a chance, or is it really just Andy Dalton holding them right at the Andy Dalton line, having about a 500 record here and there? And now everyone's darling now, the Cleveland Browns. I had two players on the board for them. I was debating between tight end David Njoku, who everybody seems to be picking this year, or wide receiver Antonio Callaway. Now, all eyes on offense are going to be on Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, but Antonio Callaway had 3 of his 5 touchdowns in his final 6 games, so he finished the year really hot. He's got that big play potential, could get you 3 points in fantasy or 23 points on any given week. When it comes down to it, David Njoku is probably going to produce at a top 10, top 15 level for his position in this offense. So he is the safe pick here, but having the 2 LSU alpha males should keep Antonio Callaway in check, because it's pretty humbling knowing that you're never going to be more than the wide receiver 3 on your own team. So hopefully that keeps him focused on just becoming the best football player that he possibly can be, keeps all that off the field stuff in his rear view, and really focuses on being a dominant deep threat and big play option for the Browns moving forward, and what could be a really exciting offense. And for the Dallas Cowboys, we have yet another wide receiver on this list, although I did toy with the idea of Connor Williams, who has really glowed up in his second year. He looks really primed and ready to play the guard position physically, even though I think that he will eventually be either the right tackle or even potentially the future left tackle for the Dallas Cowboys. I think that we're going to see a big improvement from him strength-wise going into his second season, but I went with Michael Gallup because, man, this guy really felt like a steal just coming out of the draft in 2018 in the 3rd round. He had to have led the league in overthrown touchdowns. He went 6 for 119 in a playoff game versus the Rams, which was one of the best playoff games of a Dallas Cowboys wide receiver ever. In 2019, he's actually going to have Amari Cooper for the full 16 games, which really should be a big improvement, because we saw a big adjustment in the offense altogether. Once Amari Cooper was inserted there, things are really going to start to open up for Michael Gallup, and defenses are keying in on Amari Cooper for 16 full games. And then Kellen Moore at offensive quarterback should help the vertical passing game connect, and quarterbacks naturally like to ignore the running game, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see Kellen Moore become a little bit pass heavy in his first year as offensive coordinator, which means more targets and more opportunities for Michael Gallup. This really should probably end up being just a list of breakout wide receivers, but for the Denver Broncos, I also had 2 guys on the board that I was deciding between. That was linebacker Josie Jewell, because of Vic Fangio and his ability to take inside linebackers and make stars out of them, but I had to go with my man, wide receiver Courtland Sutton. I was a huge Sutton fanboy in 2018. I really wanted my Cowboys to trade up into the top of the 2nd to go and grab him. I think that this man produced at such a high level despite the poor quarterback play that he had to deal with. 36% of his catches went for 20 plus yards. And then here comes Joe Flacco, who, as much as I like to tease and mock him because, I don't know, Flacco's kind of a bum, he actually could be a really good fit for a guy like Courtland Sutton as a deep ball guy. And Noah Fant should help pull deep safeties trying to stop Sutton on the big play, because now they've got this really athletic inside presence that they've got to worry about. Here we go. For the Lions, I finally got a non-wide receiver player here. There were 3 players on the board for me here. It was Kerryon Johnson at running back, center Frank Ragnow, but I went ahead and I settled on my man Deshaun Hand, because while Kerryon was the obvious choice, in fact he was one of my fantasy team names last year that I really enjoyed, Kerryon my wayward son. I kept Kerryon on my roster just for the memes, still won the championship. But Deshaun Hand, he was a 4th round steal from 2018. He had 3 sacks in his rookie year despite missing the final 3 games, and he finally gets a full season to play along Snacks Harrison. I think that he's going to be a really impactful guy in this defense. If this defense is successful in 2019, Deshaun Hand is going to play a huge role in that, and I look forward to seeing what a physical presence like this guy can do after a full NFL offseason under his belt. For the Green Bay Packers, I had 3 guys that I was deciding between, and running back Aaron Jones, I felt like he kind of had a breakout year last year. He had some ups and downs and didn't produce to the full extent that you would hope for over the season, but I think that you can expect him to have another big impact year in 2019. And then, not because I was trying to avoid another wide receiver, but Marquez Valdes-Scantling is another guy that could have a breakout year in 2019, but I went ahead and went with their 1st round pick from last year because Jair Alexander is a baller, and this guy is going to end up being one of the best cornerbacks in the league when it's all said and done. He only started 11 games during his injury-plagued rookie season, and that's the one thing that could hold this guy back, is he's got elite level abilities. He lined up all over the place. He started out in the slot, but he moved to boundary cornerback, spent most of his time there, but he even lined up at linebacker in dime and nickel packages, blitz off the line of scrimmage. This guy can do it all, and the Green Bay Packers are building a beast of a secondary, so this guy is going to be the best player among a group of really high quality players. All right, now we're on to the Houston Texans, and I I've got 3 players on my radar here. The top 2 are 2 that I've heard quite frequently from other people that I follow and respect, and that's guys coming off of injuries, running back D'Onta Foreman and wide receiver Will Fuller V. Both are recovering from dreaded Achilles injuries or torn ACLs, and even with like a 90-95% Will Fuller, I think that Keke Coutee has the chance to be one of the best slot wide receivers in the game in this offense. He showed early on what an ideal fit he is with a guy like Deshaun Watson, and he barely even scratched the surface as a downfield threat. These 3 Texans wide receivers might actually be the most ideal blend of skills you can dream of. Hopkins is the alpha that can do it all, win short, intermediate, and deep routes. Fuller is the deep specialist, the DBs fear getting behind them, and Coutee is the prototypical agile slot wide receiver. Everybody complements each other and fits their role perfectly in this offense. Problem is, when one of them goes down, it's really going to hurt the entire dynamic like it did with Fuller last year. Demaryius Thomas helped a little, but he's more of a household name than a home run threat these days. The Texans' 3-headed monster wide receiver only got to play in 4 games together last year, so it's going to be really exciting to see them at full strength. For the Indianapolis Colts, we're actually going to shift to defense for this side. Edge rusher Tyquan Lewis is definitely a candidate for a breakout player this year, but injuries scare me. I'm going to go with a safer option here, and I think that that's linebacker Anthony Walker. He was overshadowed by Defensive Rookie of the Year Darius Leonard last year. This linebacker-friendly defense will allow Darius Leonard and Anthony Walker to rival Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith for the best linebacker duo in the NFL. There should be a breakout player along the defensive line, and it's most likely going to be one of those edge rushers, but the injury history makes it just too difficult for me to predict. If I wasn't a spineless coward, I would have probably selected Devin Funchess here instead, but I wanted to include some defenders on this list when I saw an opportunity to do so, and Anthony Walker definitely provides that chance. I do love the fit, however, of Devin Funchess across from T.Y. Hilton with Andrew Luck throwing him the ball. I love Cam Newton, but this is the type of wide receiver for him, and it's an ideal fit for a guy like Luck, and I always wondered what took him so long to get him a guy like this. Second round pick Paris Campbell is actually a backup plan in case Funchess goes off to the point where they just can't even afford to bring him back in 2020. So this is kind of like a bonus here. I definitely think that Devin Funchess is going to have a huge season. He is one of my favorite fantasy sleepers this year, thanks to Paris Campbell taking some of the attention away from him after the draft. Alright, and for the Jacksonville Jaguars, this one's pretty easy. It's got to be a wide receiver here also, and it's between last year's second round pick DJ Chark or D.D. Westbrook. I think that the vertical passing game in this offense should get a boost with Nick Foles, but I don't think that DJ Chark is ready for a huge role in this offense yet. D.D. Westbrook has the skill set to be a primary deep threat, but I think that Blake Bortles was just too afraid to chuck it to him. Westbrook had a mind-blowing 100 targets in 2018, and I'm so sorry for being such a coward here, but Chris Conley could also be the guy for the Jaguars. I should have been able to pick one of these free agents, but I just couldn't get the courage to do so. Chris Conley actually ends up in a similar situation to Devin Funchess with even more athleticism to stretch the field, but he's a little bit less refined as a wide receiver. Anyways, one of these guys in this offense should become the Jaguars wide receiver 1 in 2019. Moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs, this one's an easy one for me. It is running back Damian Williams. This guy was such a late undrafted free agent bloomer. He's got low tread on his tires, and he looked more explosive than ever in this offense. Carlos Hyde would have made more of an impact in Jacksonville, or at least been brought back if he still had some gas left in the tank. Receiving ability sets him apart drastically because Carlos Hyde is statistically and literally one of the worst pass-catching running backs in the league. But if we're talking about fantasy football again here, the ADP for Damian Williams is just too high already for me. I think the people are just already onto this guy as a potential RB1 in 2019. Moving on to the Los Angeles Chargers, I wanted to go defense here, but because I'm trying to double this up as a potential fantasy football breakout players list, I went ahead and skipped out on selecting linebacker Uchenna Nwosu, and I went with wide receiver Mike Williams. In 2018, he had a mini breakout with 10 touchdowns on 44 catches, which is kind of an insane ratio. I think it just speaks volumes to the red zone threat that he really is, and that he really was able to capitalize on Hunter Henry not being in the lineup. He's entering the 3rd year, which is crucial developmental year for wide receivers. With Tyrell Williams' departure, and you never know with Keenan Allen and his injury history, there's potential for Mike Williams to get a lot of volume targets here. While I don't think that his touchdown rate is sustainable, especially with Hunter Henry back, he should be able to capitalize and still get close to that, if not exceed that, depending on Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry and their ability to produce in this offense. But most of all, just stay healthy overall. Moving on to the Los Angeles Rams. For them, this is an easy one for me. This is tight end Gerald Everett's season to break out. He was a popular breakout choice last year. He didn't really get a lot of opportunity until that Cooper Kupp went down, but when he did make the most of his playing time. The Todd Gurley injury could lead to an increased emphasis on the passing game, and his only real competition at the tight end position on the Rams roster is Tyler Higbee. So he's got all the athleticism you can ask for. The Rams did spend a second-round pick on this guy. I think this year that they go into the year scheming a little bit more for him rather than just falling back on him after the injury with Cooper Kupp. For the Miami Dolphins, I wanted to go offense. I love Josh Rosen. I think that he could have a relatively good season given the offensive weapons around him are much better, including running back Kenyon Drake, who I also considered for this position. But there's not a lot of options because the talent pool in Miami is pretty weak. I went ahead and settled on last year's first-round pick, defensive back Minkah Fitzpatrick. He had 11 starts at 3 different positions, 5 at safety, 3 at cornerback, and 3 in the nickel. I think that he could see a lot of improvement from just being able to focus on one position. So hopefully Brian Flores gives him an opportunity to do that. And I think that he's going to end up playing the either safety or cornerback McCourty role in Brian Flores' defense. It's going to make him look like a genius either way because I think that Minkah Fitzpatrick is just that good that he could play either position if he wanted to and have a Pro Bowl, if not all-pro career. For the Minnesota Vikings, this one's kind of an easy one for me. After a torn ACL in 2017, everybody was picking Dalvin Cook to have a huge season in 2018, but I think he needed that extra year to really be back to full strength. And also, they're going to make more of a shift to a zone running scheme this year with a little more play action because that's what Kirk Cousins thrived in while playing in Washington. They spent their first-round pick on a center, and I want to look back at the first 4 games of Dalvin Cook's career as to what we could truly expect from him in 2019 rather than just the completely inconsistent 2018 season that we saw before. The Super Bowl champion New England Patriots are always a hard team to pick a breakout player for because you just never know what's going on over there with Bill Belichick. But I went ahead after scouring through the roster. I found edge rusher Derek Rivers, who was their 3rd-round pick in 2017. He tore his ACL in his rookie year, and he's only got 2 tackles in his career and 1 sack. But I think that the Trey Flowers departure really opens the door for him to see a lot of snaps. Michael Bennett does play a slightly different position overall, but will attract some of the attention away in the pass rushing game, so it's really going to open up things for Derek Rivers, who is a small school guy but is definitely not lacking in athleticism. I think that Belichick's going to give this guy every opportunity to show that he can play in this league after spending a 3rd-round pick on him in 2017. The New Orleans Saints pick is pretty easy. It's got to be last year's first-round pick, edge rusher Marcus Davenport. The Saints did give up a 2019 first-rounder for this guy, and in 2018 he had 4.5 sacks in 13 games while dealing with quite a few injuries here and there. Alex Okafor is gone after Davenport matched him in sacks and had more quarterback pressures in over 200 fewer snaps. So more playing time is definitely coming from Marcus Davenport, but the only thing that concerns me is the rebuild inside of the defensive line. It could hurt him if there's not consistent pressure from up the middle, but it is his time to flourish opposite of Cameron Jordan going into 2019. For the New York Giants, I had another 3 players on the board here that I was debating between, and that was tight end Evan Ingram, offensive guard Will Hernandez, or edge rusher Lorenzo Carter. And while I feel like both of the offensive players are going to have really good impact seasons, I don't see anybody having the opportunity or the ceiling like Lorenzo Carter does. This guy is such a freak athlete. He had 4 sacks after playing on only 40% of the defensive snaps for the Giants. Olivier Vernon is gone, and opportunities are going to be plentiful for him, and he likely factored into the Giants passing on Josh Allen in the draft to take a future bust in Daniel Jones. For the New York Jets, I selected tight end Chris Herndon. I know that everybody expects Sam Darnold to be the choice here, but I think that Chris Herndon deserves this shout out a little bit more than the franchise quarterback. He quietly had a really impactful rookie season by tight end standards. He's just a solid all-around player, and the wide receiver options in this offense really only go 2 deep. And I know that Adam Gase wants his tight ends to be involved, but has really struggled to find the right player to fill the role in Miami, with the best season from a tight end in his offense coming from Julius Thomas, in which was his last season in the league. Mike Gesicki was supposed to be his guy, but obviously Gase was fired before that was able to come to fruition. Chris Herndon's not as athletic as the previous guys that played with Gase at tight end, but he should be a little bit more consistent and reliable, and seemed to have a great rapport with Sam Darnold early on. The Oakland Raiders, the Hard Knocks Oakland Raiders. With so many random free agents signed on offense, I could have gone with one of those guys. But I went ahead and I focused on the defensive line because there's quite a bit of turnover from the previous few years. And I really liked the 2 draft picks from last year, Arden Key or Maurice Hurst. Now, Arden Key just didn't finish enough plays in his rookie year, and now he's got to compete with the 4th overall pick and a 4th round pick at the same position, while Maurice Hurst had a solid rookie year and was already pretty well known among draft nerds going into the season after his notable fall from a projected top 20 pick. But he should be a household name after this season, if not for his performance on the field, but for his performance in Hard Knocks. While all the edge rushing additions hurt Arden Key's chances at breaking out in 2019, they helped take the pressure off of Maurice Hurst a lot. And I don't know why I can't dive all in on these free agent wide receivers, but Tyrell Williams and Derek Carr are a match made in heaven, and he's another fantasy football sleeper to keep an eye on, while other people clamor for Antonio Brown once again. The Philadelphia Eagles are another team where I had to debate between 3 players, and that was edge rusher Derek Barnett, tight end Dallas Goedert, or cornerback Sidney Jones. Barnett and Goedert were both drafted to eventually take over as the number 1 guys, but the top dogs are still in town, so that kind of puts their full potential breakout on the back burner a little bit. But cornerback Sidney Jones is now 2 years removed from that Achilles injury and is finally truly healthy for the first time in his NFL career. Last year's 4th round pick cornerback Avonte Maddox will be a popular choice to break out this year after his impressive performance as a rookie, but Jones is going to get every opportunity to prove that he was worth the Eagles' investment, while Maddox just continues to develop and provide solid depth in what is shaping up to be a pretty good secondary. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, replacing Antonio Bryant makes wide receiver a pretty obvious position for them, and I had 2 guys on my radar, and that's James Washington or Ryan Switzer. Now, you're not going to replace Antonio Brown with just 1 guy, and picking the guy to break out in this situation is almost a crapshoot. James Washington did lose a bunch of weight this offseason, and that's a really good thing for him because he came into the league a little bit too big, a little bit too running back-esque, but he still might not have a good enough grasp on the offense to truly be trusted, while Ryan Switzer had a nice connection with Big Ben in a limited role in his first year with the team and offers a dynamic option as a slot wide receiver and return guy. He was acquired in August and immediately picked up the playbook and was able to contribute right out of the gate. Do not count this guy out after a full offseason and with the door open to land a bigger role. He's just going to be one of those guys that's always been counted against, but yet seems to come through when it counts, so look out for Ryan Switzer in this Steelers offense. For the San Francisco 49ers, I looked at 2 offensive players for them because that's the side of the ball that I think has some young players that have yet to make a name for themselves. Last year, wide receiver Dante Pettis did make a kind of big impact, especially as the year went on, but I had to go with my man, running back Tevin Coleman. Now, the 49ers running back room is crowded headed into the season, and Tevin Coleman is the latest handpicked Shanahan running back. Health concerns are pretty common with all the 49ers running back. Matt Breida broke down after a near breakout performance in 2018. McKinnon is recovering from a torn ACL, but one of the earliest tears of the season, so that allows almost a full calendar year of rehab before kickoff. And Tevin Coleman has a little wear and tear, but also had his bumps and bruises as a change of pace guy in Atlanta. But the difference for me is that Coleman offers every down running back skill set, including a home run threat with his breakaway speed. Don't be surprised though if there's pressure from within the 49ers organization to get their money's worth out of McKinnon, but that's not really Shanahan's style. Health and opportunity are going to be the 2 things that really determine who the breakout guy is among this group of players, and my money's on Tevin Coleman. For the Seattle Seahawks, I've got to go with their 5th round pick in 2018, cornerback Trey Flowers. He was drafted as a college safety, but moved to cornerback because, they like him tall and long in this defense. He is 6'3", 200 pounds, and injuries thrust him into the starting lineup immediately in his rookie year, and he responded really well with over 60 tackles, 3 forced fumbles, and he's expected to start across from Shaquille Griffin, who's looking at a potentially big season this year as he takes over as leader of the defense and elevating his play to the next level in 2019. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this one's pretty easy. O.J. Howard is a freak. Injuries prematurely ended his breakout 2018 season, but I'd love to see the Bruce Arians effect on O.J. Howard moving forward. Quarterback consistency should help also. The connection that he had with Jameis Winston was a little bit better than the one that he had with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Winston is in a contract year who he could be argued as the Bucs' potential breakout player this year, but to me, he's kind of already shown an ability to put up numbers and dominate through the air. It's really just the carelessness and the mistakes that have plagued Winston, putting up the most important stat of them all, and that's wins. Jameis Winston still is a volume passer, and O.J. Howard should be ready to be really unleashed in 2019. For the Tennessee Titans, there were a few players that I was looking into as potential breakout players in 2019, and unfortunately, Derrick Henry and Corey Davis have just burned me too much in the past. So, naturally, I'm sure that they'll do it again this year and actually have big seasons like I've been waiting for from them. But this team isn't going to be putting up numbers on offense because it's just not their identity. They want to win with defense, and I think that edge rusher Harold Landry is going to be a big reason that they can just rely on the defense in 2019 to keep them in every single game. I'm still shocked that he fell in the draft like that. Size was a big reason for that, but I know that he's been working on changing that in his first full offseason in an NFL weight room. He had 4.5 sacks in 2018. Sadly, that was third on the team, and then he had sacks in back-to-back games to end the season, so you always like to see that from a rookie. You don't want to see them hit a rookie wall. You want to see them sort of flourishing and really getting some momentum going into the offseason. With Brian Orakpo and Derek Morgan not coming back, Orakpo retired and then Derek Morgan just wasn't re-signed. He's really going to see an increase in opportunities and snaps to increase his production in 2019. The Titans did add Cameron Wake, who's like 40 now. I don't know. He's been playing for a really long time. He's going to offer a nice veteran presence and should take some attention away from Landry, but Wake's best years are far behind him now, and he really is just here so that Landry doesn't have to have the full weight of the Titans pass rush placed on his own shoulders. And for the Washington Redskins, Darius Geis would be such an easy pick here, but to keep things even, I think I'm going to go with a defensive player here. Geis did have a torn ACL in 2018 early on, and 34-year-old Adrian Peterson's presence really only helps in case that Geis isn't 100% going into this year. But the guy that I really am looking forward to seeing this year play is defensive lineman Jonathan Allen. Remember when he fell in the draft to 17 overall after being considered a top 5 pick, really? Well, that shoulder looks fine after all, guys. Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen make one of the league's best defensive linemen in the NFL. They're almost like the anti-wall of the Cowboys offensive line, and I know that 8 sacks from an interior defensive lineman is kind of a breakout, but I see even bigger things potentially from him in 2019. So that's it for the breakout players, guys. But for those of you that stayed to the end to hear about what's been going on in my life, I really do appreciate it. And I'll also get into the ideas for this fantasy football club that I've got going on. But if you've made it this far in the video, please make sure you hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe also, because it means that you're interested in the stuff that I'm posting. And now that I'm back, I should be able to get at least a video out a week. I'm going to shoot for more than that, but these 3 kids are driving me nuts and are some of the neediest creatures I've ever met. But let's get into what's been going on in my life here. And I kind of wrote out what I wanted to say here, and it got pretty long, so don't be surprised if I end up posting this again as its own video at some point as sort of a official channel update, just because, yeah, there's been that much going on. As you guys know, my wife and I had twins in March, and since she had to be in bed rest for a month leading up to the birth, she ran out of maternity leave with 3 weeks left in her school year. She's a teacher, by the way, I forgot to mention that. So I was left to take care of our 3 kids every day since I quote-unquote work from home. Now, this was a challenge that I thought I was prepared for, but I was not prepared for this. I was fortunate that both my mother and my mother-in-law were able to take a week off each to come and help me, or else I might not have made it, guys. They were there more so to give our 3-year-old someone to play with and some attention when the twins were being super needy. My wife is home now, and our 3-year-old started a summer school program at her daycare this week and goes for about 3 hours each morning, which opens me up once again for a lot of time to actually work. Now, here's where we get to the fun stuff. I know some people don't give a flying when it comes to content creators needing breaks, and people love to throw out the get a real job in comments and replies when things go wrong for them. But the fact of the matter is that for this to be a career, you have to take a leap of faith that you can actually be your own boss, hold yourself accountable to make deadlines without an authority figure breathing down your neck. It's easier said than done, trust me. And while I don't recommend it to everyone, I'll recommend it to anyone that thinks that they've got the skills and the self-determination to do it. I actually don't think that I have that self-determination, but I took that leap of faith, and this is where I'm at now. So I've actually got to go ahead and develop that consistency and that work ethic that I don't think that I was naturally blessed with. But to me, this is the new-aged American dream of starting your own business in this country, or really anywhere in the world. That's what's really awesome about the internet. And for the most part, it's possible for anyone to at least make a decent side hustle on the internet with a little dedication and hard work. The rules and regulations regarding this were a little bit blurred at first, I'll admit. I know that everybody has stolen, quote-unquote stolen a joke or an image or a meme that they saw from someone else and, I don't know, passed it off as their own one time, if not more. It's easy to do, and sometimes even easier than actually sharing the original content across other platforms with friends, family, whatnot. You have to have somewhat of a conscience to make it a full-time gig on the internet world, because if you're just copying and pasting other people's hard work as your own, the actual laws regarding copyright and intellectual property will shut you down eventually, regardless of what platform you're focusing on growing a business on. That's part of the reason reason that I shifted towards being a YouTube content creator, because they have a deeper technology at work here, making sure that that just doesn't happen. I can't tell you how infuriating it is to work hard on perfecting some meme in Photoshop only to have someone like NFL Memes take it and repost it without any credit. It's a shame because, you know, NFL Memes could encourage people to follow the original poster of the content that they steal, and the little guys would get a big boost from their large following, which in turn would motivate them to create more stuff in the future, which then in turn also gives NFL Memes more stuff to quote unquote share in the future from their account. That was originally my idea with NFL Retweet, but retweeting people that mentioned my Twitter account just wasn't the way to grow an account, and I needed to come up with my own stuff. And then I just decided I would retweet people that interacted with my stuff so that the things that I was coming up with could gain a little bit more traction, but yet giving other people credit and helping other people get their own interesting comments and funny stuff out there also. Now, technically, a lot of us are still breaking rules. I don't know the pictures of players that I use in these videos. Should I credit the photographer? Yeah, probably. But for the most part, I'm altering the photo and using them under the requirements of quote unquote fair use, which allows you to parody, critique, or educate. Basically, I always ask myself going into something, could this content still have the same impact without using this piece of work that I found on the side of the internet superhighway? If yes, then it's fair to use. Now, that's an oversimplification of the rule, but kind of a safe and fast way to get a little bit of moral guidance when making choices of what to use. Now, I've learned this stuff the hard way, as have many content creators. You have to use trial and error to find out what works best anyways, and sometimes the boundaries you test can get you into trouble. Obviously, the NFL doesn't want you to upload their content, which I don't do because I saw some people getting suspended for doing it, so I stopped. But last year, they tried to lay down the law after week 1 of the NFL season. I guess they were trying to set a precedent for the rest of the year, but a third party called Clarivate something, I don't know. They sent Twitter 2 DMCA copyright strikes, which is Digital Media Copyright Act. They sent 2 strikes for me using Twitter's tweet video feature that actually credits the original poster of the video when I tweeted someone else's video of something that had happened that, I don't know, they had used their phone to record something that happened on their TV. So it wasn't my video that was being posted, but I was using someone else's. But DMCAs are really only supposed to be for people that are the original posters of things. I did reply to the email that I got back about this, contesting it, but never got a response, and I've always been kind of a rule follower, so I didn't anticipate I'd ever accumulate enough of these to ever really threaten the good standing of my Twitter account. Another one that I got was from last summer. It was the annual NCAA video game would be coming out today tweet, where I just googled NCAA 19 to see if there were any fan covers that I could use as a picture. The original poster of this picture slammed me with DMCAs on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I messaged him and apologized and explained that I found the cropped version of his photo in Google Images and tracked the original copy-paste version of it so that he could find the real person that he needed to sort of tattle on. And he ended up apologizing to me and saying that he would retract the copyright strikes. Now, he retracted it on Facebook, I think, but definitely not Twitter. Once again, I didn't make a big deal about it because I don't like to make the same mistake twice, and I try to abide by the rules to my best of my abilities, and I never thought that this stuff would catch up to me. Well, long story short, the old stuff eventually caught up with me. A few years ago, I made a Brett Favre highlight video, and I remember being in a rush to get it posted, and I needed a song. This was before I determined that you always pick the song and then make the video, but anyways, I ended up picking one of the worst ones possible. In Hosier's Take Me to Church. I know, it's embarrassing. I almost deleted it once I realized what the true meaning of the song was all about, but said fuck it and left it. Well, like 3 or 4 years later, it ends up being the thing that puts me over the edge, and Twitter suspended me. I guess Twitter allowed them to run a similar scanning program that is here on YouTube, and my tweet popped up and got included in an email with like 30 other tweets. Now, Twitter won't give me back my account unless one of 2 things happens. 1, I reach out to each person or company that filed the claim against me and ask them nicely to retract it. So far, even my nicest emails can't even get a response from these people. Or option number 2, I file a counterclaim with Twitter, which I'm assuming will decide whether or not they actually remove the strikes or remove my account altogether. Mind you, this is the same company that took down my @the_NFL_history account that had like 90,000 followers, including a lot of verified NFL players, just because the NFL wanted to make their own NFL history account @NFL_history, an idea in which they scrapped after 1 season of not being as good at it as I was and changed it to @NFL_throwback. I'm sure sure you guys have probably seen this now. They're actually doing a much better job now with it. But needless to say, I've been pretty stressed out that this business I've spent all of my adult life and then some building to the point where it was my full-time job and was making enough money for my wife and I to buy a house and set up a lifestyle in which I was going to be the primary caregiver for our kids. Yes, I in fact did sign up for this a long time ago. I didn't anticipate the 2-for-1 special with the twins, but these are just the hurdles that life throws at you. To add to this Twitter blow, only 2 months into the twins' life just feels like overkill from the big guy upstairs, man. And I guess now is the time to cue the get a real job crowd in the comments, but it's just not really an option for me anymore. For starters, you do learn a lot about yourself when you don't have to submit to that 9-to-5 life, and I'm just not good at it. I've got kind of an aloof, creative type personality, and that's not a great fit in most corporate jobs, and those are the only ones that are going to offer the potential salary that if Twitter does in fact decide to dig their heels in and never give me my Twitter account back, starting over with the social media pieces that I have left is still a better option for my long-term success in life. So after legit tears and questioning who I even am without this Twitter account, this thing that I built while my friends were wasting time and money getting a college degree, or so I thought, this business that has been a main focus of mine for 9+ years, this distraction that I used to get me through the darkest time in my life when I had to help my wife, who at the time was just my fiance, and I had to help her family deal with the loss of her little sister who died in a car accident the night before she was supposed to join my wife at college for the beginning of their senior and freshman years together. So yeah, it's bigger than just a Twitter account for me. Imagine someone taking away your college degree after a few years of getting your footing in your new career that required a degree to even be eligible to work there, so now you are unemployed. Even in the worst case scenario, I've spent too much of my life dedicated to covering the NFL that I really don't feel like I've even got any other hobbies that I'm an expert in, so I'll still be here making YouTube content. If NFL Retweet is no longer available, I'll probably be rebranding to something a little bit more marketable, because one of my early mistakes was not realizing that I couldn't eventually trademark a name that was a combination of two things that are already trademarked, NFL and Retweet. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now, guys. If you want to help out, you guys can tweet at Twitter support, hashtag FreeNFLRT. Make sure you mention at NFL Retweet in there too. It can't hurt to try to get their attention this way. I've neglected the Twitter community lately while taking the time to build this YouTube channel, and without the ability to actually tweet at them, oh hey, I've been suspended for some BS, most people don't even notice you're gone at first. Hopefully this wasn't a complete waste of your time and you learned something about what it's like out there on these Twitter streets and just these internet streets all in general. If you have any questions about starting your own internet venture, hit me up. Usually I'd say the Twitter DMs are the best place to reach me, but now you have to get creative. There is a Discord link in the description and you can reach me there, but I'll also try to respond to everybody in the comments here below. I definitely recommend it to anybody that will listen, because it's amazing to be able to make money based around the things in life that really give you energy. For me, talking about football and making jokes about the NFL fires me up. I love it. I never had that feeling in the morning when your alarm goes off and you're feeling like life has defeated you before the sun even comes up. I remember that feeling. I hate that feeling. So if you're dealing with that and it's getting you down and it's just killing your energy on a daily basis, do something about it. Obviously don't quit your day job tomorrow, but start something that maybe in 3 years, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years can actually replace your full-time gig as your main source of income. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you guys, and I'm really looking forward to the NFL season ahead. Once again, stay tuned. I'm going to be coming out with a video at least once a week. I'm going to shoot for 2 a week, but bear with me because while my wife is home for summer, I feel kind of like a dick just going down into my man cave basement to work on YouTube videos and internet stuff while I hear 3 kids upstairs, 2 of them likely crying at the same time, while another one begging for attention. So I'm trying to balance this family life and work life at the same time. But the next video should be out in the next couple days. It's going to be a potential series that should be easy for me to go ahead and make a video for a lot of different teams, and it's going to be preseason superlatives, so you know, from your yearbook most likely to this and that. So stay tuned for that. Should be coming out within the next week here, and I will see you all in the next video.